The time is 6:45, and I'll call the Parks and Rec Committee meeting to order. Michael Benuchez will speak with us about offering a discount to large groups visiting the Gilly Pool.
Yes, good evening. I'm filling in for Justin this week as he's on vacation, but we were recently approached by a local nonprofit about offering group rates at the Gilly Pool for nonprofits that directly affect Warren County citizens. And so we proposed that we offer a $3 rate for those ages 5 to 17 that are part of those groups. And so it's our recommendation to approve that rate.
So in our comments, I see that it'd be recommended for only for 501c3s in
Yeah.
McMinnville, is that correct?
Yeah, nonprofits, they have to provide proof of nonprofit status to us for approval for that $3 rate.
Okay,
So I talked to Justin about that. He said the school system right now is the only one who gets a good rate.
Correct.
And this age thing would keep it pretty much structured down instead of opening the door so wide. Because it's, in my experience, it was been a hard no over the last 10, 15 years.
Correct.
So I was glad to see this. And Justin said we were doing well enough with the concession stand and other things that he felt like it was okay.
That's right.
So I would make a motion that we accept this new group rate for the ages, specific ages, and 501c3s only.
okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion
Okay.
approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business with Parks and Rec? A meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michael.
6:50, we will open a public hearing to hear comments on the 23-24 budget. If anyone is here to address the board in that regard, step to the podium and state your name for the record. Man, they're part of the record.
It's all like letters.
Hearing no comments, we'll consider this public hearing closed.
This one, I see the ones. See, I see.
Yeah, basically.
Somebody on vacation.
Straight to the computer. It's 7 o'clock. We will call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the McMinnville City Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
Sally Brock.
Here.
Deidre Dunlap,
Here.
Stacy Harvey,
Present.
Steve Harvey,
Here.
Rachel Kirby.
Here.
Carrie Morton. Here. Mayor Chastain.
Present. The next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. Each member of the board should have received those in their agenda packet. If there be no requests for additions, corrections, or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading and approve those as read.
So moved.
Well, I have a question about.
Okay.
Does it need to be in discussion? Is this? Is that a statement you've written to attach to the minutes or what is this that's
That,
attached to the minutes?
That attachment was something that I read from at the last meeting. And because it was in writing, I gave it to the recorder and she could do whatever she wanted to with it. I just knew that it was something that I read from, and I just gave it to the recorder because I thought that was the proper thing to do.
And I attached it that way y'all would have record of what
Okay.
was said.
Okay, because that's not clear though. I didn't know that. So, okay, I didn't know we could make a statement kind of and attach it to the minutes, but good to know.
I have a motion by Miss Carrie Morton,
Second.
a second by Miss Sally Brock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Item 3 is recognition of visitors. Anyone who wishes to address the board, please step to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Sharon Milton. And I'm up here today to talk about the Pace Setters property. I understand for the police department, I think that would be a good idea. I know that the city purchased the property back in 2021 for $375,000. And the size of the property is 17,000 square feet. The acreage is 4.63 acres. There's a build-out office space and conference room that's 4,400 square feet. It already has heating and air conditioning. There's enough parking space. I would hope that the city would consider using this property for the police department to give them some space instead of building a new building and charging the taxpayers. Thank you.
My name is Nikki Jewell, newly property owner of 130 Hobson Street. And I'm just in agreement with Ms. Sharon here. Just gonna see if she left out any information that I have about that particular subject. This building would be also large enough to have a holding cell for the prisoners while waiting for transport, which would be very convenient. And from what I understand, it would have plenty of parking. And it would save us, the taxpayers, $5 million. So I just think it would be an excellent idea for you guys to look into and see what you think.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is recognition of employees. We have several department heads here this evening. If anyone wishes to give anyone recognition, time is now. Mr. Ming, do you have anything?
Yeah, so again, I just want to say thanks to the employees and you all for all the work that you've done on the budget, which we're coming to an end on possibly tonight. So thank you for that. And thanks to Public Works for the Colville Street beautification, which is underway. You may have seen some stuff on Facebook, but Hale and Hines Nursery donated some material. Urban Forestry has been installing it. And so thanks to Public Works, Urban Forestry for all that they're doing there. The work will continue down between Depot Street and South Spring Street. So it'll be that whole stretch. So thank you.
The next item on the agenda is communications. We have two items. Item 5A is a request from Monica Moore to host a 5K marathon on Saturday, August the 5th at 7 p.m.
Well, that is correction of 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Oh,
The time slot on that. Aside that,
Any-
the map's been sent to you, everything's been sent and reviewed, and
Any-
there's been no concerns raised on the event.
Do we have a half marathon route?
I mean, there's not,
It says in this letter from Monica that the route is locally known for runners and walkers.
there's no, did she give you a map of anything of what?
There should be a map in the picture on there. I got the route here, which I can read off to you. Pioneer Lane to Vervilla Road, follow Bavaria Road and Morrison Street to South Arrowhead. Turn left on South Arrowhead Drive, turn right onto Indian Mound Drive, turn left onto Dogwood Trail, turn left onto Boyd Avenue, turn left at the first cross street onto Westwood Sixth Avenue. Westwood Sixth Avenue turns right and becomes Westwood Drive. Stay left on Westwood Drive, turn left on Old Morrison Highway, go across the bridge and turn left to Greenway, run Greenway and come out at South Chancery Street, run across the bridge, turn right to go to Pepper Branch Park, go up Old Viola Road, take a left on South Chancery, back to Bridge, back to Greenway and back through Westwood.
Chief Mosley, are there any concerns on law enforcement or safety about that?
No, it should be a pretty route.
Okay. All right, any questions, comments by the board?
Count me out.
I'll hear a motion to entertain Ms. Moore's letter.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sally Brock,
Second.
second by Ms. Rachel Kirby, all in favor? Motion passes. The next item is from Main Street McMinnville regarding a farm to table event at the farmer's market on August 26th.
We are having, we're just applied to have our farm table. It is a fundraiser for revitalization. So everything we're doing is to help for putting the money back into revitalization. Exactly for grant matching funds for some of the businesses for us to apply for some more grant this and have that 25% to offer to get some of these grants. That's what we're doing it. We would like to be able to use the farmer's market that night on August 26th. The dinner would start at 6. Cocktail hour would start at 6 and dinner would start at 7, and it would be pretty much 6 to 9. We have already talked to Justin and Parks and Rec, and they have already said that they had no problem with it. They were good with it. We just wanted to see if y'all had any other questions or if you would waive the fee for it or not. And if not, that's okay. We're just seeing what we can do.
This will be what, the third that they've done, the farm to table dinners?
They have not, yes. I don't think we've had a farm to table since 2018 was the
Yeah.
last one. I think they planned one and then it got canceled in 2020. So
They've
yeah.
been very well received and attended and have been great events.
I've had a lot of people already ask about tickets and when, like, we're gonna try to sell tickets at $100 a person. So, but we've already got some great sponsors and some things lined up. So hopefully it'll be a good event. So
Can you state your name, please?
Jennifer Meredith. Main
Thank
Street
you.
McMinnville.
I don't mind approving the request to host it at the farmer's market. I know that waiving fees for nonprofits is something that we have been wanting to discuss, so I don't know if the board would want to do that tonight, but we still have 2 months more or less until the event. So would that be okay? And I'll
That's fine.
circle back around with you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I've talked to Justin a lot about the logistics of it because of farmer's market being in the morning and us needing to set up, later in the day. And he said he's worked it out and he was good with it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, just let us know.
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion to approve the use of the farmer's market on August 26th for this event, and then we can discuss the fees at a later date.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey, a second by Miss Sally Brock. All in favor? Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item 6 is petitions. There are none. Item 7 is unfinished business. Does any member of the board have any unfinished business this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, new business. Any new business for the board? Hearing none, item 9 is resolutions. Item 9A is resolution number 2210 of the city of McMinnville to adopt, ratify, and affirm retainer agreement, which is incorporated by reference and set the date for the resolution to become effective. I don't know how to pronounce that. Napoil Skolnick. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Miss Sally Brock,
I'll second it.
second by Miss Carrie Morton. Mr. Mean, can you provide some context about this resolution?
I can try. So let me try to explain what PFAS is, and if I need help, maybe Ricky could hop in. PFAS are a diverse group of thousands of chemicals used in hundreds of types of products. PFAS in the environment can enter the food supply through plants and animals grown, raised, and processed in contaminated areas. It's also possible for very small amounts of PFAS to enter foods through food packaging, processing, and cookware. So the National Rural Water Association Board of Directors, NRWA, governed by the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts, voted to engage with the law firm of Napoli Skolnick to file a PFAS recovery action against the global manufacturers of PFAS. The sole purpose is to provide an opportunity for water and wastewater systems to recover any expenses they may have or expenses they may incur in the future for testing, treatment, and remediation of PFAS contamination. For clarification, this is not a class action, as there are multiple classes of plaintiffs, and the litigation is defined as multi-district litigation. And to join, there is no cost to the city, for which Tim.
I've reviewed the proposed contract and found it to be customary. The fee agreement is contingent, no recovery, no cost to the city.
We actually won't start testing until January of next year. So we don't know what our results are gonna be. I personally don't feel like it will be there. There may be small trace amounts. But I think the EPA has set the parts per trillion actually at like 5 parts per trillion, which is nothing. But if it is present, there's treatment techniques, treatment strategies that you can use, but they won't be cheap. Okay, so this way we find it and they will go to bat for us to recoup that cost for the additional treatment techniques, if that makes sense.
Have they been successful in other jurisdictions?
I think there's been about $13 trillion recovered so far.
How many zeros in a trillion?
That might help, balance our budget.
And like I said, we'll do 4 quarters of testing and then we'll know our fate. I know under the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule of 3, it wasn't there. We're fixing to do the UCMR 5 testing. Those are unregulated contaminants that are now going to be regulated. So once that starts, we'll probably know off the first quarter, and a lot of this, I know it's a movie, but if you want to learn more about PFAS, there's a movie called Dark Waters. Nolan's actually watched it. Get to learn more about what PFAS is, where it comes from. Companies like DuPont that do like turnout gear, like the flame retardant stuff, even in some of the packaging, the food packaging, your sausage and biscuit that don't let the grease go through the paperwork. It's in there. It's actually in like all your Teflon skillets, stuff like that. But if you want to watch the movie, I'll be glad to send you I sent it to Sally today. We were talking about it, so I'll be glad to send you the link. But I think it's a no-brainer to get on board with this before the time runs out. So like I said, we don't find anything, there's nothing to recoup. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
Yes.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Stacy Harvey,
Aye.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10 is ordinances. Item 10A is ordinance number 1857 for the city of McMinnville to execute a revised plan of occupational safety and health programs for employees. This is the second and final reading. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey,
Second.
second by Ms. Deidre Dunlap. Any questions for HR or discussion for the board? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Stacy Harvey,
Aye.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
Yes.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10B is ordinance number 1859 for the city of McMinnville to adopt the annual budget and tax rate for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2024. This is the second and final reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey,
Second.
second by Ms. Carrie Morton. Discussion among the board.
Yeah, I got a couple of things I'd like to say. I'm actually glad I was a little surprised by this information, but I'm glad it's in there because we got it's nice to have it all written out where we can kind of tell, where we can really tell what all it says. And I'm referring to the information that Mr. Harvey told about the last meeting. It's also in your packet that other things that he talked about, mainly about Mr. Brock's comments. Item number 1 says the city burns between $4 and $4.2 million to start its new fiscal year. And when you say burns, that means that our actual fund balance drops by that amount. And we learned last week that that is not true, that we spend that much, but we also have about $1 million in income, which offsets that to us dropping to about a $2 million fund balance and not a $1 million or an $800,000 fund balance, which it says in item number 1. So if you have 5, you spend 4, you earn 1, you still got 2. Item number 2 speaks about Mr. Brock's comment that we had $844,000 in debt payments. And Mr. Harvey explained that we actually had $1,026,563 in debt payments. Well, maybe Mr. Brock realized that the paving note that you've been talking quite a bit about was paid up in this year. So it is now paid up and we don't owe that money anymore. So actually the $844,000 is correct. And it's not $1,026,563 anymore, because that note has already been paid off and we do not owe that anymore. So item number 2 is wrong. If you go to page 2, at the top, there's a lot of talk about the police department. And the first item at the top says the city police department has been thoroughly ignored for decades. The next comment, we run the only department that does not have its own building in the entire state. I'm not sure where that information came from, but that is not true. I talked to about, not didn't talk to that many. I looked online, and out of about 15 police departments that I checked on, I found 3 within 50 miles of here that share a building with City Hall. One of those was Baxter. One of those was Carthage. And one of those was Manchester. So Manchester actually shares, the police department, City Hall are in the same building.
I think they have a justice center, don't they?
I don't know.
I think they have a justice center. They have a large building that incorporates a lot of the government down there.
Might very well.
Yeah.
They might do it. But
That may just be courtrooms. I think that's courtrooms.
anyway, saying the only department that does not have its own building in the entire state is not only incorrect, it's very incorrect. Because if you take 3 out of the amount that I checked on, you got to know over the entire state, there's going to be
A whole lot more. That was actually a comment that was made by someone that came in to discuss that at some point in time. I got that actually from one of these meetings and one of the consultants that came in over the last 2 years. That actually was stated in one of these meetings at some point. Or a committee meeting, or it was stated in one of these meetings. I got that information from a proceeding, someone that told it.
Yeah. Well, it's not right.
Okay.
And then the next item, our turnover rate for officers is atrocious due to lack of funding from the tax base to adequately equip and retain certified officers with reasonable pay for the profession they're engaged in. That's been addressed. That is addressed in this budget, that we do not need a tax increase to cover. It's not anything we took out or cut back. That item is addressed. And then if you move on down to, and this kind of goes in your favor actually, but I'm still going to point it out because it's not right. This proposed budget includes the following necessary expenditures. When you say this proposed budget, I'm assuming you're meaning 23-24.
Yes.
Police cars, 350,000, which is correct. Fire truck, 750,000. It's not in this year's budget. It's in next year's budget.
Well, that's correct because we allocated the funds, but we're not due to deliver till possibly November of next year.
So it's in next year's budget. So the increased capital expenditures, instead of being 2.143 million, it's actually about 1.4 million. And then the last point is talking about voting down developments, and it just seems like the only criteria that you say we should use in deciding whether development is passed or not is how much tax revenue it brings in.
No, that's certainly a factor. It's a factor. And it's a factor in this discussion because revenue is a factor in this discussion. And when you diminish the tax base or you don't expand the tax base when it's appropriate, when it is legally, when it's legally acceptable and legally suitable. When we deny that as a board, then we diminish our tax base.
We think it's not appropriate.
Well,
that's the reason we voted against it, because not only because I couldn't in good conscience vote on something just because it brings in more tax revenue.
Well, I don't
think there are other factors involved.
Well, there is, but it was legally appropriate to
Just
be
because
done.
it's legal doesn't necessarily mean I think it's right.
Well,
to
that's
do.
fine. The vote's already done, but it was legally appropriate to be done. From what I understand, we could actually be sued and forced to do that.
We could, yeah.
So it was absolutely the right thing to do,
No,
but we didn't do it.
Well, 4 people thought it was.
I guess that's the way this works. I get it.
And then you didn't talk about it in this, it wasn't written in this diatribe here, but you made the comment about Parks and Rec Department budget being higher than the fire department budget.
You put the Park Theater in there and it absolutely is that way.
Okay, well, if you take $1 million in revenue that the Parks and Rec Department brings in, it makes it way less than the fire department budget. So
The
And
total revenue
besides
doesn't cover the nut of the whole department.
well, but it takes the budget lower than the fire department budget by far.
Yeah, well,
And
you're apples
anyway,
and oranges.
what's the comparison there? I mean, why,
Well,
who says that?
You're the one making the comparison. I'm simply saying that the amount of money that this city puts into a vital city function is less than an elective city function. I'm trying to draw a contrast between something we have to do and something we want to do.
Right.
That period. Full
So
stop.
why does revenue not play into that?
Because we're not talking about revenue. Where do we talk
Sure
about
we are.
revenue from the fire department?
There is none. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. And when
But
you
there
look-
is from Parks and Rec.
when you look at the expense for Parks and Rec, we don't have that. Fire department provides much more vital service.
I'm
than
not
Parks
saying
and
they
Rec
don't.
does.
It's extreme. It's the most important thing we have, them and police, but
That's fact.
there's no rule that says, I mean, that the budget necessarily has to be higher than the Parks and Rec budget. And especially not when the Parks and Rec department has revenue.
Well, just because
So I
there's
just don't
no,
understand that point.
well, that point is that we have prioritized, this board has prioritized in the past things like Parks and Rec instead of putting money into public safety. That's exactly the point of the whole dissertation,
Well,
is that we've decided in the past that we had other priorities, such as ignoring a tax base that would be sufficient to pave streets at the level that we should. Okay, so you can take that and piecemeal that any way you want. But the bottom line here is that the tax rate should have been raised years ago, and we would have been able to improve the vital services that this city is supposed to provide for our citizens. We have not.
that is incorrect as is about 2/3 of the stuff on this document.
Well,
You missed this. For somebody that talks about things being factually accurate data, you missed it by a long shot.
well, then that would
Not
make
even
Mr.
close.
Brock and I in the same category.
I'm not talking about Mr. Brown.
Well, see, I wasn't either until you brought it up. And when you first, that was your first comment. That was
Yeah,
your
because
first
you were
comment
wrong. I mean, he
Well-
was right.
about one thing. About
Okay.
one thing. And this budget that we're still in, Steve, we're still in right now. This budget year, we're still in, actually has that debt service in it.
Yeah, but maybe he knew it was gone. I mean, it seems like such a
We're
coincidence that
currently
he,
paying it.
it's paid. Has it
we're-
already been paid?
It's in this budget.
But it's paid off. We don't pay it this upcoming budget, which we are voting on. We do not pay that.
I understand, but
It's
it
paid
shows poor judgment historically
I
when
didn't-
it
I didn't
comes
say that
to
it didn't.
maintaining vital city
I didn't
service.
say that it didn't.
Well,
I'm just
that
saying-
was my point.
My point was that your number, you thought it was important enough to correct him.
It was.
Okay, and well, I think it's important enough to correct you that your 1,026,000 number is wrong.
Okay, then you
It's
get
flat out
that
wrong.
point. That's fine. But why did we borrow money to pave streets when we didn't pave any for a number of years? It's because the tax base was set, the tax rate was set too low and we didn't have the cash. That was the whole point. This was an argument to support a responsible increase in the tax rate. And here were some examples in the past where it would have been appropriate to sponsor that increase in tax rate. It was ignored, and this is how we were punished for it. It was ignored, and this is how our fire department has been punished for it. It has been ignored. That's how our police department has been punished for it. But for some reason, we can go spend $10 million on a rec center and we don't worry about.
Which you
people
voted
that-
for.
I wasn't even here.
Okay.
What the hell are you talking about? I wasn't even elected yet. Okay, so there's one you're wrong on.
Okay, I'm wrong.
There we go. There we go. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the judgment of this board in the past has been all out of whack as to its priorities. And I'm trying to rectify that. Someone decided to put me on finance, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I can do math. Evidently, somebody in the
Evidently, you
past
can't, when you say we're only gonna have $800,000 as a low general fund balance.
Well,
That's wrong.
in our committee meeting,
Well, I
in our-
checked into it and it was wrong. 'cause I
well,
knew
in
that
our
it was wrong.
committee meeting, the revenue, the increase in funds from tax collection wasn't presented to us in the committee meeting that I generated those numbers from. It wasn't spoken of. It was all expense versus revenue. Sales tax was not in that.
Okay.
It was
well,
property
I'm
tax
saying that
base.
that was wrong.
Then very well, it wasn't presented to me. The
Okay.
numbers that I have come from staff. It wasn't presented. Period. It
Okay.
wasn't presented. So if I don't know it, if it wasn't presented by staff, how am I supposed to include it?
That you're supposed to dig and find out, just like I did.
Well, then good for you.
Okay.
The bottom line here is,
The
this-
bottom line is that we never get below $2 million. And you said we get down to 880,000.
well, we would if we didn't have that sales tax revenue, and sales tax.
That's part of it. And it's
I
part of what we
understand.
get.
I understand, but the sales tax revenue counts on economic activity maintaining at the previous pace. So we're counting on something that may or may not happen. That's a fact. That's a fact.
What are you saying may or may not happen?
That volume of sales tax
Well, it's
collection may or
increased
may
every
not
year
happen.
since 2000, as far back as we've looked, since 2017. And it's increased by an amount well over $1 million total sales tax. So there's no reason I mean, of course, it may not. I mean, there's a chance that it won't, but there's also a very, very good chance that it will.
Very well.
Okay.
It may or may not, but that is may or may not. A property tax rate is not a may, it is a will.
Whether it increases or not, we're still gonna have that revenue. I mean, we're still gonna have $1 million roughly in revenue to offset that $4 million that
Fair
we
enough.
spend.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Fair enough. I don't know what's wrong with having a bigger bank balance at all.
I don't, I don't see the need for a property tax increase when we have projected a minimum $5 million balance, and we could have as much as $6.5 million at the end of the year.
That wasn't,
And we may need one next year.
Mhm.
We may, but we don't need one now. We do not.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done. And you guys can vote whatever you feel your heart takes you to vote, but I want to, I guess I'll make an amendment to this motion that we do not have a property tax increase in this fiscal year.
There's a motion to amend ordinance number 1859. I'm assuming by accepting the budget as presented, but not changing the tax rate.
That's correct. And one other thing, did we get the extra money for the library in there, or is it not in there? I couldn't tell.
It is in.
So the 25,000 for the library,
Oh, microphone's gone out. I'm sorry. I can barely hear you in the back.
the 25,000 from the extra for the library is in what we're voting on now.
Yes, based on the motion from last meeting. It was version B with the 25,000 for the library added back in.
Does that increase our MOE, or is that a one-time charitable contribution to the library?
I put it in a separate line, and I think whenever we send an award letter, we need to be very explicit that this is a one-time donation and to not increase our MOE.
I'll second your amendment to the ordinance number 1859.
So there is a motion and a second on the table to amend ordinance number 1859, accepting the budget as presented, but not implementing a 25-cent tax increase. Is there any further discussion by the board before we vote on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Deidre Dunlap,
Nay.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Carrie Morton,
No.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Stacy Harvey,
Nay.
Mayor Chastain.
No, motion fails.
I have a question about the money though. Okay. So let's say we have a lot of revenue next year. Is there a way to pay down some of this debt can you pay off some of this
Absolutely.
with that?
I mean, the
Because
money,
we are under a lot, people. And I'm just gonna say, until you see, you don't know what you don't know. And when you see our capital outlay and how much money that we owe, people don't even know that we're still playing on the Gilly pool.
Or the demolition of the blue building.
I mean, that you just don't know that unless you see it. And I mean, it's things that have been done and that's all well and good. And, we move through it. But those are things that if we get paid down, then maybe we have extra money to where we can buy things without having to borrow the money every time.
the answer to that question is absolutely. If when we get to this time next year, if we've returned more money from the budget than we thought, and our sales tax revenue, our property tax obviously looks like it will probably go up, and we're in a financial position to do that, then we can absolutely look at the debt service that we have and make substantial payments on those.
Because, it's the part theaters in here too. And, if we could knock out some of those right off the bat, I mean, then it doesn't look as bad then. But I mean, some of these numbers are out to 20, 30, whatever. And that's a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of interest that we're paying. So thank you for answering that.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the rates on those notes? Anybody have any idea?
Low.
Yeah, I mean, they're.
It doesn't matter. When you see the amount of money, the amount of interest, when that amount of interest is $45,000, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 1%, 1.5%, something like that, but. So we do have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1859 as written to include the budget as presented and the tax increase. Is there any further discussion regarding the original ordinance? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Rachel Kirby,
No.
Carrie Morton,
Yes,
Steve Harvey,
No.
Sally Brock,
No.
Stacy Harvey,
Aye.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 11 is departmental reports. We have several department heads here this evening. If anyone wishes to give a report to the board, come on up.
I wanted to update you guys on a couple things, Parks and Rec related. So this is a big weekend for us with the 4th of July next week. Dr. Pepper and First National are partnering to sponsor the fireworks this year. They're gonna be Saturday night. They'll do like a family fun zone thing starting at 5 o'clock, food trucks, everything. At the Milner Rec Center, and then fireworks at 9 o'clock. And then Tuesday will be our annual downtown celebration for 4th of July. So I hope you guys can.
What time does that start?
The fun run starts at 7 o'clock that morning, and then First Night Methodist will have the pancake breakfast. The fire department will do the watermelon drop, patriotic program, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Wanted to let you know the water line projects on West Hills Ford and Powell are complete. They've been replaced and all's good. So I think they've got the paving taken care of too there in those areas. So, and I also stand corrected. That's 13.5 billion dollars, not the T. So.
Oh, well.
So now we can pay out some.
So let y'all know that next Friday, Lieutenant Ben Cantrell, he'll be going to the FBI National Academy at Quantico. So we'll be missing him for the 10 weeks. So we're excited that he's getting to go. And it's an honor for him too. And he's excited too. And appreciate his family for giving him up for that long. But just want to let y'all know that.
Just want to let y'all know, I had a couple that retired. Eddie Clendenin, he retired a couple weeks ago, and David Denton's retired. And hopefully we'll get somebody in them positions and everything. So hopefully soon.
Hey, Frank, can I ask you a question? What's the horizon look like on getting that Clark Boulevard, Piers Street?
They were supposed to do it last Friday.
Well, it didn't happen.
I know. They were supposed to do it last Friday.
So any day?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
they called me the week before and said they'd be there on Friday. They was gonna do some paving there. And never did make it to us.
The sidewalks look great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mang, do you have anything?
The strategic plan summary will be shared out this week. So you will all receive a copy of it. Probably tomorrow. That's all I've got.
Mr. Purtle?
Request a 5-minute executive committee at the adjournment.
Yes, sir. Announcements, any announcements for the board? Well, as requested by council, we do need to close the boardroom briefly following the adjournment of this meeting. So thank you for a good meeting and we'll stand adjourned.